in order to control people, the first thing you have to do is undermine their traditions, their values. Here's a classic example. There was wall here. We didn't know when it was built, how it was built, what time, we didn't understand it. They bashed an entrance in here because they wanted to get up onto this other area. It would have been very simple, without disturbing any archaeology, to simply put a wooden bridge across here behind us, and would have gone across here and wouldn't have disturbed anything. But no, they wanted to do what they wanted to do. They have no respect for the history or my heritage, and they just bashed on through here. And if you come here, they then cut through probably what was 13th century wall here to put in these stupid steps. They pulled out some concrete which they dumped into a hole on the far side, and what do we have? A politically correct play area. And that's what's so insulting. This castle is a monument. It's a monument. It's part of our history. It's not a daycare center. When you look at these stones, what you're looking at is the underside of a staircase. So there was once a tower or a totally different kind of building. We just don't know exactly. But instead, you get stuff like this to look at, and the real history is ignored. The main well, and it's 90 feet deep. Unfortunately, the water level in it has dropped because they've messed around with it. But we used to drink the water out of that well, and it was crystal clear, wonderful. What is really interesting is this piece of wall here, and you have to sort of really get to know granite to look at it and understand what is going on and what is being covered up. But this section of wall probably belonged to the one of the very first towers or structures that were built after this section. And you get an idea because if you look in here, see that there is the original vaulting, and that is a sally port through this very ancient piece of wall, and which tells us that there was activity behind at a lower level. And there's another one up there. So Lancet window, yeah. And you know, for nearly 800 years, this original lancet arrow window and the wall in which it was set had remained undisturbed and unspoiled. And that was until the Jersey Heritage Trust, in their mad attempt to turn this castle into a modern playground, allowed the contractors to bash an opening through this ancient window in what can only be described as an act of wanton disregard and pure vandalism, solely in order to bring their construction power lines into the castle. And this they did without any planning permission, and later, in their rude attempt to Disneyfy our heritage, they decided to conceal their foul and ignorant actions by plastering everything over, thereby denying everyone the right to observe and study the castle's history and its sequence of development through the natural stones in the granite face. If you probably can't get this, but this is all part of the false construction and the false stuff. You used to be able to see the top of a doorway here. but we don't know. Until we could dig it up and excavate it and find out, we'll never know. Place for the water to run off the roof.
I see.
So they have bashed a hole through probably a 12th century piece of architecture.
I see.
Time, and there's your ancient toilet.
This was a residential room at one time.
At one time. And they covered over the walls, so you can't actually see the history. You can see there was a window. It's starting to show through. There was a window over there at one time. And they brought this up because they just wanted originally an entrance to what they had hoped would be their bar.
Hide under the stairwell as a kid.
When we used to hide and play hide and seek, we used to come down here and hide under the stairs. And of course this is all false, and this is the kind of crap that these people have put into the castle and engineered into it, and it's all misleading. The worst thing that happened was here. This was known as the German room. Germans actually billeted in here during the war, and after the war Captain Dorey kept some of the mortars and weapons that the Germans had left here. But this wall behind is part of the real ancient wall of the early castle. For 800 years you could see the stone. But because they wanted to get all their pipes and facilities in before anybody knew what was really happening up here, they burrowed through from the other side. Now this is 6 feet thick, this wall. They then cut all the way along here, this much and about that deep, all the way along. Because this is where they were going to run their water and their electricity. They then cut into the wall here, massive. And we have pictures of it all. And this is how they were going to get the water and the facilities to their bar. And therefore, when they covered it and they then filled it up, they had to do something. And so what they did is they covered over this wall that had been bare and bare stone for 800 years. They had no right to do that. And so they turned everything, they wanted to make this into, as I said, just a restaurant.
Disneyland.
A Disneyland. And the thing is, this is being done by a bunch of carpetbaggers who have no part in the history or the heritage of the island. And so we had quite a fight over it. But in the end, they got their way and they wasted £5 million. And not a penny was spent on looking after the walls, getting the ivy off the walls, consolidating what we had, and doing some real archaeological excavations. So the money was gone. And the money was raised on an absolute lie. And the lie was that there was a Tudor hall here. And there never was a Tudor hall at all.
Well, they kind of erased your history, haven't you?
Yeah, but this is what is going on in many, many places. And Jersey is a microcosm of what is happening throughout the world. Finance controls this island. Government is expanding. People are being made to be more and more dependent upon the government. Taxes are going up. And they keep finding silly ways to expand the government. You know, a week ago they wanted to introduce wildlife wardens. Why? Because jet skis make too much noise. And somebody said, oh, we've got to do something about the jet skis. Very easy. 5 miles an hour until you're a mile off from the low tide mark. End of problem. But no, we have to have wildlife wardens. But what were people talking about? Jet skis. Not about the wildlife wardens and what powers they would be given to become an environmental police.
Plastic policeman.
Okay? So everything, Jersey is a microcosm of the world. The Channel Islands are, as a whole. Europe wants to control us. What we should do is declare our independence and start with a constitution like the United States, and only with the first 10 amendments written into the Constitution. The beast of the book of Daniel is the one world government. And what you're seeing now in the world as the riots in Egypt, you're seeing Jerusalem slowly being surrounded. Egypt will go down, then Jordan, and then Turkey. Turkey's almost gone. And then things are going to get really nasty. And the war is going to start in Lebanon. And the Israelis may end up nuking Damascus first. But the bankers are the criminals. And we're enslaved in a debt economy.
Do they allow referendums here on the island?
They talk about them occasionally, but...
Just to placate the people?
But no, I mean, even Switzerland's having a referendum now, because why? They want to control the weapons in Switzerland. Every male that goes into the army does his time. He comes out, but he keeps his rifle with him, and he's expected to. And he's expected to defend the nation at any time. They're having a referendum now to try and get those weapons away from the Swiss people.
Oh, for heaven's
why? Okay? Whatever happens, now, free people will always want the right to bear arms. And as Jefferson said, where the government fears the people, you have freedom. Where the people fear the government, you have tyranny. And right now we see the Fourth Reich rising, the European tyranny. You know, as the Fourth Reich comes into play, with the Germans being the power of Europe, the big exporters and manufacturers, British manufacturing's gone. The only thing that happens in Britain is the banking and the bankers. And now you have Frankfurt trying to buy the US stock exchange. Interpol is the bankers' international police. So we have the Interpol or the European arrest warrant now, which means we no longer have habeas corpus. Slowly, one by one, our common law rights, in America your sovereign rights, are gradually being eroded because they know they're going to be riot. All this is prophesied. The beast of the book of Daniel, chapter 7. The beast is the one world government. It's unlike anything that's ever come before. But it becomes destroyed. It is destroyed by the rock that is cut without hands from the mountain. And where the church has distorted, quote, the Gospels, the real gospel of the Messiah, Christ, is the gospel of the kingdom, the promise that the kingdom of heaven is to come on this earth. In other words, a time when righteousness will rule on this earth, and it will rule from Jerusalem. And that is not going to happen until the house of Israel and the house of Judah start to reunite. That is the English-speaking world and Israel today. And we put our differences to rest, and we all start coming back towards the real value, the real purpose in life, which is to serve God and follow the Torah. Gradually people are waking up to this. But we cannot stop this one world government and this evil, mammon, money. We can't, there's nothing we can really do about it. It is only when the Messiah comes that this will be destroyed. The entire financial system is going to go down. That is prophesied, 18th chapter of the book of Revelation. And it's going to crash in 1 hour. That means very quick. We've had a financial hurricane that has upset the whole banking world. What is coming next is not a hurricane. It's a financial earthquake. It's going to happen so quickly that no one will be prepared for it. The only thing you can do, or communities can do, is to buy gold while you can. I used to follow Captain Joseph Dorey around. He was the guardian of the castle, and he knew the whole history. And that's where I learned everything. And he always used to finish his tour of the castle right here on this fireplace. And because certain people have scratched their initials into the castle, and one of the names that was scratched into this fireplace was Raleigh. And unfortunately, some idiot from the Public Works Department took a grinder and just ground to clean this.
Right.
And so this is the kind of moron and moronic thinking that one had to deal with here. And an absolute shame. Because I don't know how many times I stood here, and he would be here, and there'd be a crowd of people, and he'd say, Walter Raleigh, well, he wasn't always, his manners weren't always that good. He actually scratched his name on this fireplace.
Oh.
And it was wonderful, and I never forgot it. And when I came back and I saw this, and what had been done, it just tells you about the age that we're living in.
Well, your history is being erased. Well, that's part of your history.
And it's not being erased by accident.
Yeah.
All this is intentional. And this is the biggest lie of all. This is Jersey Heritage Trust's Tudor Hall that never existed. This is obviously an outside wall. It's facing outside. Of course, the fireplace bothers everybody, but that is an outside wall. And yet, they tried to tell us, or they wanted to tell us, oh no, those windows were ancient lights. In other words, they were just put there to put light into the void behind, which is absolutely ridiculous. That's an outside wall. It was closed over. This was a courtyard for most of the life of the castle, and you can see the old corbels and the way the roof originally sat, but they couldn't do that because it wouldn't work out. So they had to lift it up higher, and it was converted into accommodation to accommodate gunners when the castle was transformed. Or went into a different period when gunpowder and cannon became a reality. They had to build this gun tower on the other side, and the most important people in those days would have been the gunners, and they had to provide accommodation for them. And so it was probably roofed over for that purpose. Before that, these were gun ports. And that's why that ended up with a vaulted roof where it had once been a two-story building. And the evidence of the two-story building is all over the place. It's easy to find. This piece of wall here, this totally false piece, and you'll see later, may have been similar, but that was only done probably to accommodate guns. got a beam holding this floor up under a fireplace. And that just wouldn't have been done. That would have been the last place in the world you would want to have placed a beam just under the slab of a fireplace. It doesn't, you know, it beggars belief. And in order to deal with the water that falls on these roofs, we saw that awful damage that they did to the corner of the medieval hall. And all these walls, you can see, they've all got a story. They've all the stone tells the truth. But until we can go down and dig down below and look for the original entrance to the castle and things like that, it's all speculation.
Looks like they've got a dinosaur in there.
Well, that's more tourist crap. You can see that through here. I mean, it's to entertain the tourists. It's not to preserve the history.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
I just thought of something. Now, if they hadn't made a banqueting hall, it would have been building kitchens for the disabled access.
In their original plans.
So they would have had to disturb such a lot to
Oh
make
yeah,
that a
no, they were
banqueting
going to put
hall.
their kitchen in a lift here.
Yeah.
We have traitors, Blair, Brown, Ted Heath. All these people have sold British sovereignty to a foreign power. And Germany, the Fourth Reich, is now taking over.
With David Cameron's ironclad guarantee for a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty.
Yeah.
If that's not a good example enough for anybody. But.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's all empty words.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Empty words and broken promises. So there are a few people in Britain that are starting to wake up to the Lisbon Treaty. Not the Lisbon Treaty, but Agenda 21, the UN's Agenda 21, which its main object of that is to confiscate private property, to stop private ownership. The people are sovereign. That means they are equal to the king. They hold the power. And the bankers are desperately afraid of this. And are doing everything to undermine it. And how do you do it? You undermine the history. You change. You distort everything. And you start teaching kids in school that they're no longer American. They're citizens of the world. And, but it's all going to fall apart. It's all going to come down.
How come the architects couldn't notice that that was an outside wall? Because I can tell that and I know nothing.
No, because you're talking about money. You've got to go back right to the beginning. The 5 million, I would start with 3 million to start with, was raised, you know, on the understanding that there was a Tudor hall here that should be reconstructed. Okay. Well, if there was, you know, if you reconstruct something, you have to reconstruct it with the original material. That wasn't here. But there never was a Tudor hall here. This was a temporary gunner's room. Because when you had guns here, everything changed. Warfare changed. And the whole castle became vulnerable from the hillside across, you see. You had to have gunners. And gunners were the highest paid in the military forces at the time. So they needed to house the gunners. And this is probably what happened. We can't say for sure. Because we don't know enough about the castle. The archaeology that needs to be done has not been done. And that's what the money should have been spent for, archaeology, digging out, going down below here, and consolidating the walls. And the director of the Jersey Museum had the gall, the cheek to tell me that it was so important because he thought the Queen was going to actually come here and have dinner.
That's about news.
Yeah,
You'll get to that.
You know, that's
Well, there she is, right there.
That's as far as she got. And where money talks, integrity walks. Only here in Jersey it runs. See, the Germans were here. It was an observation post during the war.
Oh.
The Germans built this. But even the Germans had more respect for the castle and our history than certain people here today.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, yeah.
You say this is cultural eradication of the native history here.
Yeah, it is. In order to control people, the first thing you have to do is undermine their traditions, their values.
Schism.
And it just doesn't matter. This is what is happening. The sad thing is when your own people aid and assist in doing that. That is the worst.
Jeez. If we were going to try to turn this around, what would be your advice? I know you think it's going to happen anyway, but...
We can't, but we can protect ourselves. But basically, I would say buy gold. If we were to turn it around in Jersey, I would say we should declare our independence, create a constitution modeled on the U.S. Constitution with the first 10 amendments written into the Constitution, especially the Fourth Amendment, and then put ourselves on a gold standard. In other words, take our reserves, what capital reserves we have, and put it into gold. Now I try to get people here interested in putting our rainy day fund into gold, and when I did that, gold was less than $800 an ounce. It is now close to $1,400 an ounce. If you do the math, all you'll do is cry. When the dollar crashes, when the whole financial system crashes, which it's going to do, had we done that, we would have had enough gold to issue our own currency based upon gold. By declaring independence, then all treaties are nullified and we can start all over again, and we could tell the Fourth Reich, the EU, to go to hell.
Here, here.
Yeah. So that's a dream perhaps, but obviously it's unrealistic. It's going to take a far, far greater power than any of us to destroy the beast. In their original plans.
They would have had to disturb such a lot to
Oh
make
yeah,
that
no, they were going to
hall.
put their kitchen and a lift here.
Yeah.